A few years ago I did a video on a whim. I got a new Blu-ray of a live performance by ZZ Top and I love Billy Gibbons' sound on it, but there were no amps on stage. So in an enthusiastic improvisation I went down the rabbit hole to find out where that sound was coming from. That has turned out to be my best viewed video so far, so since people seem interested in this stuff and because I like going down those rabbit holes, I wanted to make more of that, but it took me a while. A sound I really wanted to talk about is Jimmy Page's sound with Led Zeppelin, especially his live sound from a certain era, which has been a dragon I have been chasing for a long time and has long been kind of mysterious. And it's no secret that I'm a big fan. But later on I will dive into what I think makes the core sound of Jimmy Page and Led Zeppelin and how you can get there using today's gear. Before we get started, I just want to say this video is not about trying to sound like someone else. In my experience, chasing down the tones that you love is part of the journey of finding your own sound. And I know that part of a guitar player's sound is in the way he or she plays, or as is often said, in the fingers. But your fingers don't make a Fender sound like a Marshall nor a Les Paul like a Stratocaster. So with that out of the way, let's dive into it. A lot of people always talk about Page's studio sounds. I always loved his live sounds more, especially from the early to mid 70s, where he used his famous Les Paul with Marshall amplifiers in what I consider to be his and Led Zeppelin's peak. For a long time his rig had been shrouded in some mystery, creating plenty of urban legends that is ironically very befitting to both Jimmy Page and Led Zeppelin. But ever since this book came out we know a lot more, at least if we can believe everything that's in there. In the early days he used Vox hybrid amps going through Rickenbacker cabinets, then shortly switching to high watts and eventually landing on Marshalls. He mainly used one super bass and two super lead heads going through 4x12 cabinets loaded with 30 watt greenbacks with an H magnet. He also had an orange amp that he used for his theremin along with a Maestro Echoplex 3 as well as a second Echoplex that he used for his guitar rig. In the earlier days he also used a Mark II tone bender, although in the later years it seems like he only kept using his Vox wah pedal live. Knowing the gear is only part of it though, how you use it is what makes a difference here. Many other players had similar gear but none of them sounded like Jimmy Page, nor did he sound like any of them. The first thing is how we use his guitars. Many people mostly use the bridge pickup on the Les Paul, but Page only did that for some extra bite. Most of the time he used the middle position, giving a quacky tone, using the neck pickup for some cleaner sounds. In order for this to work, it helps giving your bridge pickup some extra brightness by for instance removing the cover and lowering the neck pickup to prevent it from becoming boomy or muddy. And it always helps to play with your controls to taste. There is a great example of this in the documentary It Might Get Loud, where he showcases this with Ramble On, and he does it kind of like this. Moving on to the amps, the key is not to use too much gain. That's the biggest mistake that is too often made with a sound. It was actually clear, bright, articulate and punchy. How you get there and how close you can get depends on the amp you're using and how you play. Use of the wah I think speaks for itself, as well as when you use the Echoplex for a longer delay. But the Echoplex also colored the sound with its preamp, and I think he often used it for some slapback delay. In the live recordings they might have put a bit of pleat reverb on it in post, but you can often clearly hear a slapback. Lastly, the fuzz is pretty straightforward. The Mark II that he used is pretty bright and cutting, but not as gainy and compressed as his later iterations. If you want that sound, dial it in by ear. I always liked the sound that he had in some of the songs played at the Royal Albert Hall. Although I've been searching long and deep for certain elements of his live tone, I think there are plenty of ways to get there. And although I cannot play like Jimmy Page, and what I'm doing is my take on how I perceive his live sound, I'm just doing my take with the gear that I own. Of course, most of us cannot afford several vintage Marshall amps along with a real 1959 burst and a Maestro Echoplex, let alone use it anywhere. But I think there is plenty of readily available gear that will get you in the ballpark, and here's some of the stuff that I either owned, tried and can attest to. For the earlier tones, you just need to find a good telecaster with a rosewood fretboard and a standard configuration in regards of pickups and electronics, although finding one with a string-through bridge is the most accurate way to go. The Dragon Telecaster that Fender makes is actually really nice if you want to go all in. For the Les Paul, you can go anywhere from Epiphone to Gibson if you want it to be a real Les Paul. Current day Epiphones are really good in my opinion if you're on a budget or if you're just not wanting to go Gibson USA or even Custom Shop. Good electronics and hardware help a lot though, so that's something that you might want to upgrade, but especially get the right pickups for it. And regardless of what was actually in his guitar at what point, I think it's the easiest way to get there if you have a neck pickup that has a bit lower output than the bridge pickup. The easiest way to get the Marshall sound is, well, by getting a Marshall. On a budget, the Studio Vintage is great. The 1987X will get you there, but I think the most accurate way to go is the 1959. But with all of them, you're going to need some good attenuation though. That's why I currently use a Tone King Royalist Mark III. After years of trying, this thing gets me closest to the Marshall Plexi sound, but is a bit more convenient. And there are plenty of other builders out there that make Plexi-inspired amps. Just be aware that many of them are too fat, too gainy, and miss that bite that an actual Marshall has. As for the cabinet, you should of course get one that has enough power to support the head that you're using, but other than that, get a good close back loaded with either the regular Celestian greenback or the most accurate G12H30 greenback, and combining them is also fun. You can still get various versions of a Vox Wah, but you could also just get a Crybaby. I don't think it's that important. If you like, you could also get some kind of plate reverb pedal, but I think it's more important to get an Echoplex style delay pedal. My current favorites are the Kettle and Brad Bella Epoch and the Universal Audio Orion. I think the latter is a bit easier to use. You can turn the preamp on and off from the outside and it really nails the tone, but I've been happily using my Bella Epoch for years now as well. Lastly, for Fuzz, Page used various versions of the tone bender over the years, but I think the Mark II is what he used most prominently. And there are many boutique builders out there making their version of this, but if you really want to tune into the Jimmy Page sound, I can highly recommend the Deep Trip Page Bender. One effect that he would often use later on is a phaser, and for that I would recommend the MXR Script Phase 90. Even though I went down the rabbit hole deep for Page's live sound for years, it has only helped me on my own path and finding my own sound. It even helped me discovering other music and their guitar sounds. So I use what I learned to integrate it into my own music rather than being a copycat. What to me made the biggest difference was switching to Marshall Plexi style amps with greenback speakers. Their dynamic response, their cut, the drive from the amp, it has all been a huge game changer to me. And I think that sound and feel works well with dual humbucker guitars, which in my opinion doesn't need to be a Les Paul per se. So for me, the mystery of Jimmy Page's guitar sound has been uncovered for a while now, even though it took me a couple of years and was hard to get a grasp on. Hopefully I was able to take some of that mystery away for you as well. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching, and while you're down there, please like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and I'll see you next time.